The price of peace, 1,300 words. A call for help. The message arrived at Earth's diplomatic station like a dying star's final pulse. Ambassador Saracen stared at the holographic display, her tea growing cold in her hand. The face looking back at her belonged to Counselor Then, one of the peaceful Valari people who had welcomed humanity into the Galactic Council just 3 years ago. But this was not the calm, wise leader she remembered. Then's silver skin had turned pale gray. His 4 eyes were wide with terror. Blood stained his formal robes. Ambassador Chen, his voice cracked through the transmission. Please. They have taken our homeworld. My family, my people, they are prisoners. The Krell Syndicate demands we surrender our mining rights, our technology, everything. If we refuse, they will execute 1,000 Valari every day until we submit. Sarah's fingers tightened around her cup. She had heard of the Krell. Every species in the galaxy feared them. Pirates, slavers, and mercenaries who cared for nothing but profit and power. They were brutal, organized, and protected by corrupt officials who looked the other way. How long do you have? Sarah asked quietly. 3 days, then whispered. The council refuses to help. They say intervention would violate trade agreements. They say we must negotiate. But the Krell do not negotiate. They take. The transmission flickered. In the background, Sarah could hear screaming. Then's hand shook as he looked over his shoulder. Sarah, please. You are the only one who might understand. Humans are new to the galaxy, yes, but you have not yet learned to be afraid. You have not yet learned to look away from injustice because it is convenient. The screen went black. The Council's answer. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was held in the Great Chamber on Station Unity, a massive space station that orbited no world, belonging to all and none. Representatives from 50 species gathered in their floating platforms, hovering in a sphere around the central speaking floor. Saracen stood at the human platform, her simple gray suit a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and armor of the other ambassadors. Beside her stood Admiral Marcus Webb, commander of Earth's small but growing defense fleet. His weathered face was carved from stone as he listened to the debate. This is not our concern, hissed Ambassador Krell, a serpentine creature whose species shared a name with the Syndicate but claimed no connection. The Valari system is in the outer territories. The Council has no jurisdiction. Besides, added Counselor Prax, a massive insectoid whose clicking mandibles made his words sound mechanical, the Krell Syndicate has powerful allies. Military action would destabilize the entire sector. We must think of the greater good. Sarah had heard enough. She activated her platform's speaker system, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. The greater good, she said, and every eye turned toward her. 1,000 innocent people will die tomorrow. Another 1,000 the day after. The Valari helped humanity when we first reached the stars. They shared their knowledge, their friendship, without asking for anything in return. And now you want to abandon them because it is inconvenient? Young Ambassador, Counselor Prax responded with what might have been pity, you do not understand the complexities of galactic politics. Sometimes we must accept terrible things to maintain stability. No, Sarah said firmly. Sometimes stability is just another word for cowardice. The chamber erupted in angry chirps, growls, and shouts. But Sarah noticed something. A few ambassadors, those from younger species or smaller worlds, were nodding quietly. They understood. They simply lacked the power to act. Admiral Webb leaned close to Sarah's ear. We have 6 ships in range, he murmured. The UES Defiance and her strike group. It's not much against a Krell fleet, but it's what we have. Sarah looked at the chaos around her, at these powerful beings who had forgotten what it meant to stand for something. She thought of Then's terrified face. She thought of the 1,000 Valari who would die tomorrow if no one helped them. Send them, she said. Humanity arrives. The Valari homeworld of Vela Prime was beautiful even in its suffering. Oceans of liquid silver covered most of the planet, dotted with floating cities of white crystal and blue metal. but now, those cities were dark. Krell warships hung in orbit like hungry predators, their weapons trained on the helpless population below. The flagship of the Krell force was called the Iron Fang, a massive dreadnought bristling with guns and armor. On its bridge, Warlord Krax watched his screens with satisfaction. The Valari Council had just sent another desperate plea for mercy. Soon they would surrender everything. Warlord, his censor officer called out. We have new contacts. 6 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They are taking up defensive positions around the planet. Krax leaned forward, his red eyes narrowing. Who dares interrupt us? Which council species has grown a spine? Sir, they are human ships. For a moment, Krax was confused. Humans? Those primitive newcomers with their tiny fleet and limited territory? He had heard they were fierce warriors in their own system, but surely they would not challenge the Krell Syndicate over some backwater world. He opened a communication channel, ready to frighten them away with threats. But the face that appeared on his screen was not afraid. Admiral Marcus Webb looked directly at Krax with eyes that had seen too many battles and lost too many friends. Behind him, the bridge of the UES Defiance hummed with quiet readiness. This is Admiral Webb of the United Earth Space Force, he said calmly. You are ordered to withdraw from Valari space immediately. Release your prisoners and depart. This is your only warning. Krax laughed, a harsh barking sound. Your only warning? Human, I have 40 ships. You have 6. My weapons could turn your fleet into vapor in minutes. Leave now and I might let you live. Webb's expression did not change. You misunderstand the situation. You see, we humans have a rule. We do not abandon our friends. Ever. You have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal. After that, we will make you leave. Impossible, Krax snarled. No one is that foolish. Admiral Webb smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had already made his choice and accepted the consequences. 10 minutes, he repeated. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Krax stared at the blank screen, rage building in his chest. These humans thought they could threaten him? Challenge the might of the Krell Syndicate? He would teach them the price of arrogance. All ships, he barked into the fleet communication. Battle stations. Prepare to destroy the human fleet. Leave no survivors. But as his ships moved into attack formation, Krax felt something he had not experienced in many years. A small, cold sensation in the pit of his stomach. Doubt. The fire humanity brought, 1,300 words. The battle begins. The first shots came from the Krell fleet like lightning from a storm. 40 ships opened fire at once, their weapons painting space with deadly light. Energy beams, missiles, and plasma charges screamed toward the 6 human vessels. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Webb watched the incoming fire with steady eyes. All ships, pattern Delta 7. Let them think we are retreating. The human ships scattered, moving in what looked like panic. Several took hits on their shields, armor burning under the assault. The Krell fleet advanced confidently, believing the battle was already won. They did not see the trap closing around them. The human way of war. Now, Admiral Webb said quietly. The human ships suddenly stopped retreating. They spun in place with impossible precision, their engines flaring bright blue as they accelerated back toward the Krell formation. But they were not charging blindly. Each ship moved to a specific position, creating a geometric pattern that the Krell did not understand. Until it was too late. The UES Defiance fired first, but not at the Krell ships. It fired at empty space between 2 enemy cruisers. The shot seemed to miss completely. The Krell laughed on their communication channels. Then the minefield activated. Hundreds of small devices that the humans had deployed silently during their retreat suddenly came to life. They were not traditional mines. They were called fusion lances, a human invention that focused the power of a small sun into a directed beam. Each mine locked onto the nearest Krell ship and fired. The enemy formation dissolved into chaos. Ships collided trying to avoid the sudden attacks. Shields overloaded. Armor melted. 3 Krell vessels exploded in the first 10 seconds. Second wave, Webb ordered. Target their command ship. The 5 other human vessels formed a spearhead and drove straight at the Iron Fang. The Krell tried to focus their fire, but the human ships moved like dancers, covering each other, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. Their smaller size and superior engines made them nearly impossible to target effectively. Meanwhile, missiles launched from the human ships were not flying straight. They were moving in spirals, loops, and unpredictable patterns. The Krell point defense systems could not track them all. When the missiles finally struck, they did not explode on the outside of enemy ships. They were designed to penetrate deep into the hull before detonating, causing maximum internal damage. Warlord Krax watched in growing horror as his fleet fell apart around him. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They were outnumbered 6-1, but they were winning. How? He demanded. How are they doing this? His tactical officer, trembling now, gave him the answer. Sir, they are not fighting to destroy us. They are fighting to disable us. Every shot is precisely calculated. They are cutting our engines, our weapons, our communications. They want to capture us. Krax felt ice flood through his veins. Capture? That meant trials, testimony, evidence. The corrupt council officials who protected the Krell Syndicate would not be able to ignore prisoners who could talk. All ships retreat, he shouted. Emergency jump. But when his ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, nothing happened. The humans had done something to the local space, creating a field that prevented any ship from escaping. The trap was complete. The aftermath. The battle lasted only 18 minutes. When it ended, 37 Krell warships were disabled and drifting, their crews surrendering without conditions. 3 had been destroyed when their captains chose to fight to the death rather than be captured. The human fleet had taken damage, but all 6 ships remained operational. On Vela Prime, the Volari people emerged from their hiding places to see something they had thought impossible. The Krell occupation forces on the surface were surrendering to human marines who had dropped from orbit. The prisoners were being freed. Medical supplies were being distributed. The nightmare was over. Counselor then stood in the central square of the capital city, tears streaming down his silver face as he watched human soldiers helping wounded Volari. One Marine, barely more than a boy, was sharing his food rations with a group of Volari children. Why? Then asked when Ambassador Sarah Chen landed to meet with him. Why would you risk so much for us? You could have stayed safe. The council would not have blamed you. Sarah looked at the freed prisoners, at the captured Krell soldiers, at the Volari families being reunited. Because that is not who we are, she said simply. Humans have a saying, all it takes for evil to win is for good people to do nothing. We refuse to do nothing. The galaxy watches. The news of the Battle of Vela Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans, the newcomers, the species everyone thought was weak and inexperienced, had defeated a Krell fleet 6 times their size. More importantly, they had done it to protect another species, gaining nothing for themselves except the knowledge that they had done what was right. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The captured Krell warlords were already talking, desperate to save themselves. They named names, exposed corruption, revealed which council members had been taking bribes to allow the Krell Syndicate to operate. The political earthquake that followed would reshape galactic politics for generations. But for Sarah Chen, standing on Vela Prime and watching human medics work alongside Volari doctors, the political implications did not matter as much as what she saw in the faces around her. Hope. Gratitude. And something else. Respect. An old Volari approached her, his body bent with age but his eyes clear and sharp. Young ambassador, he said in perfect English. I fought in wars before your species reached the stars. I have seen empires rise and fall. And I tell you this, you humans are dangerous. Sarah tensed, unsure if this was praise or criticism. The old Valari smiled. You are dangerous because you believe things can be better. You believe the strong should protect the weak. You believe one person can make a difference. These ideas are weapons more powerful than any fleet. The galaxy has forgotten them. You will remind us. He placed a hand on her shoulder in the Valari gesture of deepest respect. Thank you for being dangerous. Epilogue, a new chapter. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council voted on a historic resolution. 12 species, inspired by humanity's example, formed a new defensive alliance. They called it the Unity Pact, dedicated to protecting the weak and opposing tyranny. Admiral Webb was promoted to command the joint fleet. Ambassador Chen was offered a position on the High Council, despite humanity's youth in galactic affairs. And in every corner of the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and among countless species, people began to ask a question that changed everything. If the humans could stand up to the Krell Syndicate, what is stopping us from standing up for what is right? The answer, as it turned out, was nothing. The age of apathy was ending. The age of humanity had begun.